Hello and welcome back, guys. So in this particular session what I'll be showing you is that why do we use subprocess module and why is it important. So you could do the same thing using OS as well. Normally the situation that you normally use is like os.system, right? And then it would basically organize or execute the program from the command line itself. So if you say, let's say ls, right? So if I just do that, it will definitely show me all the files that I have within this directory, right? So you could give any kind of command over here. So let's just say man ls. That just gives out the manual of ls, right? So as you see, like we can use OS module as well, but the OS module itself recommends us to use basically, so suppose if you made a mistake over here, right? So lss, right? So if you do that, so see, no manual entry for lss, right? So it does not give out any return code or anything, right? So suppose if you had this kind of error and then you had a continuous program running in, the program would basically break kind of thing, right? So you would not basically you can't do any operations with this output, right? So whereas subprocess module is a bit more flexible in that way that you can add multiple things to it. Okay, that way you can basically be using it for various purpose of yours, and yeah, that's very helpful as well. So let's just have a look at it, subprocess. And then the way you can run subprocess is you can do subprocess.run, and then within that you need to provide an argument, let's say ls, and if I just run it, so it will do the same thing, okay? But if I add in, like let's say ls list all of the content, and I need to, if I run it right now, you'll get an error code over here because it just says the directory does not is not over there. So since it's a string, what we need to do is we need to add in this command as well. So shell equals to true. So the run command takes in various parameters such as keyword arguments, and then it has some standard in, standard out, standard error, and we will definitely be looking at that. But shell is also there. So shell is like it's actually executing it from a command line itself. So it's generally not recommended to use shell equals to true, because a user might have, like let's say user equals to input, right? And then you basically are calling that user over here, let's say user, yeah, and then shell equals to is true, right? So F5, and then you'll be basically prompted to give a input, right? So you might be like sudo, or just say rf slash, and then you will be basically ending up like deleting the whole file system itself, right? So it's not very secure. So if you do man ls, it just executes the same thing, but this way it's not recommended, okay? So you should not give out the input to any other user because it might cause a lot of problems. So that's why it's only if you're giving in the input, then you should do it, but not for others. So ls-l, right? So when we executed this, we got like as you can see, we got all the files that we have within this directory. But how did it work? Earlier it did not work, right? So earlier on what we had done was that if you remove the shell, what happens is you will get an error, okay? So if you do shell equals to true, then it works out, okay? It's a boolean, so you need to provide 0 or 1 or true or false, right? So that way you can do that. And another thing that you can also do is, so if you don't want to provide shell equals to true, what you need to do is you need to provide it a list of commands. So let's make it a list. So now I have made it a list. So if it's a string, you need to add in like shell equals to true, whereas if it's a list, you don't have to worry about it. So if I run it right now, it's working fine, right? Next thing that you can also do is you can basically add this to a variable. So let's just say process process1 equals to this, right? And then you can do print process1. So if you do that, you will get like this kind of tuple over here where you can do it, where you see like you've got arguments and the return code as well. So you can basically print out just the arguments itself. So you can just say process1.args, and then you'll just be given the arguments itself. So if you don't want the output to be displayed on the console, what you can do is you can basically store it within that variable by using output. So it's still storing it, but if you want to capture it, capture output, I think it's capture output equals to true. It's also a boolean. So if you do that, what happens is that you just get the arguments only, okay, because we've done a argument over here. So you can just write in return code. So return code is like 0 and 1. So 0 means no errors, 1 means there is an error, right? So you can basically be adding more things. Okay, so with that OS module, you did not used to receive the return code, right? So when you have a return code, what you can do is, if return code equals to 0, or you can just say process.return code, process1.return code equals to 0, then what I need to do is print right. So as you can see, like you can basically be like running another process after that. Okay, if this is completed successfully, you can basically make it go to another process. Okay, so that is one thing as well that you can have a look around it. Another thing that you can also do is you can also add in multiple variables over here, right? So you can just say standard out everything. Okay, so you can do something else. So if you don't want to do a capture output equals to true, what you can also do is standard out, and then you can just say subprocess has another method called pipe. So if you pipe it as well, what happens is it just does the same thing, okay, as the earlier thing, as the I capture output. So it's just doing the same thing. But let's just have a look at the standard out as well. Standard out, and if I do F5, what happens is that you see like you've got a string, no, it's a bytes, right? So it's in bytes. So what you need to do is you need to get it in text, right? So it's not very readable for any user. So what you can do is you can just say dot decode. Okay, so decode basically helps us to transform a bytes into a text, and many other operations as well. So if you see it right now it's human readable, right? Whereas this subprocess module dot run has another parameter where we can say text equals to true as well. After that, you just don't need the decode. Okay, so if you just do process1 standard out, so as you can see, we just did not need anything else, right? So we are only printing out the standard output, and it's in string format, right? So it's very helpful as well. Another thing that you can also do is you can save this output to a file as well if you want, right, for logging purposes if you need it. Let's just run something else first of all. So let's just do with open, let's just say process.txt, and then I just wanted to open it in write mode as F. Alright, and then I'll just copy this thing here. And then if I just run that right now, okay, that's run successfully, right? So what I can do is I'll just open up the directory here. Open up the file. Okay, so so there is no output over here, right? Why did that happen? Because we are piping out the standard out. Why is it not running? Okay, standard out is like it's piping it out, but I wanted to write it in F, right? So I need to give it a path name. Okay, so I wanted to write inside this file. Now if I execute it, it should run properly, and now we have it logged in over here, right? So after that, what we can do is we can basically use this file as well, look through some kind of keyword or whatever you want. So let's just say process 2 equals to subprocess.run, and let's just say I'll just replace this one here, cat, and then let's just get rid of the standard out as well. So let's just write it capture output so that it's easier for everyone to comprehend. So cat, and then what's the name of the file? Process.txt, right? After that, what we need to do is within this second command we are just going to use grep. Yeah, so grep, and then what I want you to find is root. So find me this, and I want you to capture the output as well, true, and then text equals to maybe true. Last parameter that we also want is input. Yeah, so we need to provide it an input, right? So that it basically recognizes. So what I want to give input is process1 dot standard out. So output of this process1 is basically this thing, right? So I just wanted to provide that. So standard out, right? After that is done, I think we are all good. Print process2 dot std1 and then std. So if I just run that, what happens is, so completed process has no attributes standard out, right? So since I did not have a standard out over here, what I need to do is, so let's just have a look at it, what's there. Process 1, yeah, so let's just have a look at it. Okay, I made a mistake again, PRINT. Okay, so we do have a standard out. So what I missed was I did not write in the full command, right? So now if I do that, let's just get rid of this print statement so that we can see it properly. So now if we run it, so we are searching for root within this particular output, so which is this output, right? So what has happened is that within this file we are looking at that, and then we did find root, right? So root was only in this particular number over here, 7th number, so it did find out that as well, right? So it basically worked. So the only thing that you need to remember in this case is that when you're using multiple commands, or when you're running multiple processes, what you need to remember is that, so you need to provide it an input parameter, which will be basically the standard out of process 1. Okay, so you need to provide it that. Okay, another thing that you can also do is, so you could have done this in a single go as well. How? Might be surprised, but it's very easy. So let's just say process 1, let's just get rid of all this thing. So cat process 1, and like as you would do in a shell, what you would do is basically cat that, and then you need to do grep root. Don't need any of the list, it's not a list. So what you can do is shell equals to true, because this is like typing in a terminal, right? If you do that now, this is none. Okay, I mean it's standard output is none, or it did work. See over here, it basically located the root as well, right? The return code is 0, right? So that means it just worked as well. As you can see, the output is over here as well. So this is very, very helpful. Okay, so similar to that, what I do is, so what you could have done, another thing is that, let's say you made cats.process1, right? So you'll be getting an error, right? What you could have done is that you could have basically redirected this error as well. How do you do that? Basically is, so now if you have a look at the output here, so I'll just comment it out for a while, print process dot one, and if you have a look at it, what happens is that you will have a capture output is done. Where is that? Where is that? So if you have a look at standard error, so what you could have done is standard error equals to true, yeah. So it just does not recognize that, right? So what you could have done is you could have done subprocess.dev null. Okay, so what this basically does is it's a repository kind of thing. I mean, it's a directory where everything is redirected, where if there is an error, nothing happens. Okay. If you just to capture our standard out equals to subprocess dot pipe comma, right? If you do that right now, right, so the command is all right. So suppose if you have processes.txt, right, so what happens now is that now like it's not working properly, right? So the command is correct, but what you see over here is that, so if I just get rid of this, and now if I just show you the output, what you can see is there is no standard out. The standard out is blank, right, because we just don't have this particular file. But as you see, it does not give out any error, right? So for that, what you can do is you can just type in another parameter called check. So if you want the error within Python itself, within the program itself, what you need to do is check equals to true. Now it just gives out like a status 1 error where it says like call process command blah blah blah, and then blah blah something does not exist, right? So as you can see, like it just does not exist over here, right? So if I do .std error, right, no such directory or file, right? As you can see, the error is right over here within Python, whereas if you had not done that, what happened, it just did not give out any error. Okay, so it just says none, or like you need to actually, so it just does not give out any error. So for that, what you need to do is, so return status is still 1. So for that, you can just put in check parameter as well, and then suppose if you want to ignore some kind of errors, right? So suppose if you have check equals to true, and what you could do is standard error equals to subprocess dot pipe, not pipe, dev null. So if you want to redirect it to dev null, right? So if you do that, what happens? So you get an error as well. So what you could do is just get rid of this check thingy, and even though you get an error, you can't basically see it. Okay, see, like it's not showing over there, right? So that's very helpful, right? So piping is also very helpful. So what you could do is capture output. This is to capture output so that it's easier. True. Process 1 dot. So as you can see, like standard output may not be used with capture. Okay. So if you use capture output, you just don't need standard error and anything else. Okay, so you can just basically doing it as it is. So you do definitely get the standard error kind of thing. It's already piped in within, so it's already baked in within capture output. Okay, so you just don't need it's replaceable kind of thing. So yeah, this is how we can basically so what you could have done is let's see, yeah. So I'll show it to you. If process1 dot return code equals to 0, right, then what you could have done is, then you could have make it run this process. Okay, so if I execute it right now, it just does not do anything because the file does not exist, right? So if I correct the mistakes and do it, yeah, as you can see, the second process get executed, right? So you can basically make it, you can be very creative with it, do different kind of operations with it. Okay, so you can make your program very efficient in that way as well. So yeah, this is basically how you can use subprocess module. So have a look at it, go through it. If you don't know anything, please do comment down below. I'll definitely be happy to answer it for you. Until next time, take care, bye bye.